Today I'm going to be giving you a crash course on the Spanish gerund. Those are the ando and yendo verb endings in Spanish. They're the equivalent of the ing ending in English. Hablando, speaking. Escribiendo, writing. When I use the word gerund in this video, I'm referring to the Spanish gerund, which is different from the English gerund. That's why I'm pointing this out. You see, in English, the gerund can only refer to nouns. And in Spanish, the gerund only refers to verbs. It's crazy, huh? I think so. In English, the gerund is formed when you take a verb in English ending in ing and then make it a noun. Seeing is believing. See, seeing and believing are nouns. Painting is fun. Painting is a noun. When we use these as verbs in English, like Juan was running, it's called the progressive or continuous tense. Why don't they just still call it the gerund? I don't know, that doesn't make any sense to me. Never has, folks, never has. Well, the Spanish gerund only refers to verbs. You will never use these words as nouns. Now, when you want to, so they fit, like seeing is believing, you're actually going to be using the Spanish infinitive instead. Seeing is believing. Ver es creer. Painting is fun. Pintar es divertido. You're never going to say things like, pintando es divertido, are you? No, you're like, oh, use the infinitive instead, not the Spanish gerund. Got it, Paul. Good, good. Now that I've told you when not to use the Spanish gerund, let's talk about when to actually use it. I'm going to break these down into categories. Our first category is going to be certain verbs in Spanish that work with the gerund. At the top of the list is going to be the ultimate king of these, estar, which means to be. So we have estar plus the gerund, and this is the progressive tense. This is what we're used to in English. This fits our English so well. I'm speaking, estoy hablando. We're eating, estamos comiendo. The children are sleeping, los niños están durmiendo. We don't have any trouble with this as English speakers, right? This fits our English very well because, well, we use the progressive tense constantly in English. And that's why in Spanish, we tend to overuse it. And you're like, how are you overusing it, Paul? This was perfect. This fits my English perfectly. Yeah, it does. It does. But you see, in Spanish, they have the progressive tense, which we just covered. But a lot of times, the plain old present tense is going to be used where the progressive tense could be used. Take a look at this question in English. What are you doing? Now, I could translate this into Spanish two ways. ¿Qué estás haciendo? Ah, there's our progressive, right? I like that, feels good. Or I could just say, ¿Qué haces? Just the plain old present tense. ¿Qué haces? We can't do that in English, can we? Because that wouldn't make sense. What are you doing and what do you do? Those don't say the same thing. With certain verbs and in certain circumstances, it's going to sound more natural in Spanish to just use the present tense instead of this progressive. And the one I just used in the example is a really good one for this. If my wife's in the other room and she asks me, what are you doing? Chances are she's going to just use the regular present tense. ¿Qué haces? ¿Qué haces? Now, if I don't answer or she doesn't like my answer, she may just use the progressive. ¿Qué estás haciendo? What are you doing? But the plain old ¿Qué haces? Pretty common, folks, pretty common. As you become more familiar with Spanish, you're going to identify other verbs that are more common or natural sounding in just the present tense where we would use the progressive in English. Another one I would definitely point out right now would be esperar, to wait for. If you see somebody just standing there waiting, it doesn't sound as natural to say something like ¿Qué estás esperando? It's more natural to just say ¿Qué esperas? ¿Qué esperas? And who are you waiting for? ¿A quién esperas? See, just plain old present tense. Not ¿A quién estás esperando? That would not sound natural at all. Verbs of motion would definitely fall into this category, like ir, to go, venir, to come. Those are most commonly going to be in just the plain old present tense, not the progressive. For example, I'm going to the store. Voy a la tienda. That could be I go to the store, but it could also be I'm going to the store. The progressive would be possible. Estoy yendo a la tienda, but that is not as common at all. And if you're saying that all the time, you're just going to sound awkward and wrong to folks. And that's why we tell students that with these verbs of motion to just stick with the non-progressive part of it, right? Let's get back to what we were talking about here. Estar plus the gerund. And I want to talk about a little bit in the past tense because this comes up a lot. People ask me, Paul, do I use it in the imperfect or the preterite? Which one fits? And you can use it in either, but they're not interchangeable. The imperfect. You're going to use the imperfect when you're setting some type of background activity when something else happened. I was sleeping when Juan knocked on the door. Yo estaba durmiendo cuando Juan tocó a la puerta. See? Ongoing activity in the past. Yo estaba durmiendo cuando something happened. Imperfect. We use the preterite when we want to talk about something that was occurring in the past for a finite amount of time. It's ending clearly in that sentence, or it's clearly explained that it ended at a certain point. I think you'll get it from the example. The women were chatting all afternoon. See? They were chatting, but it's not in progress when something else happened, and it's for a set time, all afternoon. Las mujeres estuvieron charlando toda la tarde. Or in Mexico, you would say, estuvieron platicando toda la tarde. It's a set period of time, right? The next verb I'm going to discuss is llevar, to carry, plus the gerund. When it's used this way, it's a way to express how long some activity's been going on. The activity that's in the gerund. Maria has been living in Mexico for 3 years. María lleva 3 años viviendo en México. What we're literally saying is, Maria carries 3 years living in Mexico. An alternative to this in some countries like Mexico is to use the verb tener instead of llevar. And tener means to have. María tiene 3 años viviendo en México. I'm actually going to give you 2 verbs for this next one. They're interchangeable, they mean the same thing, and they're going to translate as to continue doing something or to keep doing something. And our verbs are going to be seguir and continuar. So either one, seguir plus gerund to continue doing something, continuar plus gerund to continue doing something. Now I'm telling you these both mean exactly the same thing, but I'm also going to tell you that I would just stick with seguir because it is much easier. Seguir means to follow. It is a mega verb in Spanish. Chances are you're using it anyway. It conjugates pretty easily. It's easy to pronounce. That's a big thing, right? It's easy to pronounce. So hey, I keep studying. Sigo estudiando. Sigo, that's easy. I keep running. Sigo corriendo. And the other conjugations are easy to say too. Why do you keep complaining about everything? ¿Por qué sigues quejándote de todo? Personally, I think that's a lot easier than using continuar. It has a lot of vowels in there. Continuar. ¿Por qué continúas quejándote de todo? I started getting a little cramp on that one. I don't like it. Seguir plus the gerund to continue doing something or to keep doing something. In this next one, I'm going to give you 2 options as well. Terminar or acabar plus the gerund means to end up doing something. We ended up buying the red house. Terminamos comprando la casa roja. Or acabamos comprando la casa roja. There is no change in meaning, whichever one you like. I don't have a preference here. I'd say I use both of them pretty equally. When you're using this construction in the past tense, you're going to want to use the preterite. I ended up studying all night. Acabé estudiando toda la noche. Or terminé estudiando toda la noche. Next one on our list is to pass time doing something, and your options here are going to be pasar or the pronominal form pasarse plus the gerund. I spent all afternoon cooking for the party. Me pasé toda la tarde cocinando para la fiesta. Or you could just say, pasé toda la tarde cocinando para la fiesta. Next one on our list is going to be andar plus the gerund. Andar means to walk. When you use it with the gerund, it means like to go around doing something. Maria always goes around looking for problems. María siempre anda buscando problemas. See how it goes? Just going around doing something. We covered a lot of verbs there plus gerund. So let's just move to another category when we use the gerund. So, you're not just stuck here. In this category, the gerund is used to express method, how we did something. You'll see from the examples what I mean. I cut the bread using a sharp knife. Now right there in the English, we have the ing ending. So this is going to mirror that. It's going to make it really easy for us. Corté el pan usando un cuchillo afilado. See? Usando. Piece of cake. Now where this might give you some trouble is when the English you're thinking of or looking at or trying to translate from is using the word by. I learned how to swim by floating in the water. A common mistake is to try to translate that by as por. Don't do that, okay? Just stick to what we just did, okay? Just the gerund by itself. Aprendí a nadar flotando en el agua. That's it. Flotando. That's it. No por. Don't stick any of that in there. Don't be tricked. You want to try one? I haven't had you try any today. They learn the dance by observing the experts. Don't be fooled by the by, folks. Aprendieron el baile observando a los expertos. Did you remember that little personal a los expertos? You're killing it, killing it. That brings us to the next category, using the Spanish gerund with the verb ver, which means to see. Lo vi fumando. I saw him smoking. I saw Maria reading a book. Vi a Maria leyendo un libro. See, we have that personal a in there. Vi a Maria. I saw Maria doing what? Leyendo un libro. You want to try one? Try this one. I saw my boss buying a bouquet of flowers. I know you're thinking, great, Paul, bouquet of flowers. Who talks about that? What if I don't know that part? Maybe you do know that part. If you don't know that part, at least get the first part. I saw my boss buying... You can fill in anything, really. Ready? Vi a mi jefe comprando bouquet of flowers, un ramo de flores, or whatever you stuck in there. And that brings us to our very last category, using the Spanish gerund to indicate simultaneous actions. And this is very similar to English, so you shouldn't have any trouble with this. I woke up thinking about the thing from yesterday. Me desperté pensando en lo de ayer. I woke up, me desperté, doing what? Pensando en lo de ayer. Thinking about the thing from yesterday, lo de ayer. This usage works really well with verbs of motion, especially like irse, to leave or go off doing something. Juan left cursing. Juan se fue maldiciendo. Maria left complaining about the party. Maria se fue quejándose de la fiesta. You know, I think it's a good one for your word list. Pretty simple construction. Well, that's it for the lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, just do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. And until next time, hasta luego.